In a world where hope seems fleeting, imagine a poor couple, struggling to survive, giving birth to a beautiful baby girl. But their joy is clouded by a grave ailment that threatens to take her away. With no money to save their child, what choice do they have but to abandon her? In a desperate act, they leave her at the doorstep of a billionaire's mansion. But when the billionaire and his wife discover the helpless child, will they choose to take her in or walk away? Could their decision change the course of fate forever? Would a parent ever abandon their own flesh and blood? Could love and desperation push them to such an unbearable choice? Ejike and Nneka sat in the dimly lit hut, staring at their baby girl Adana, as she coughed weakly in her tiny mat. The room smelled of damp earth and crushed herbs, remnants of futile attempts to heal her. Every healer in the village had given the same verdict: this child needs real medical attention, or you will lose her. But how could they afford such care when they barely had enough to eat? Nneka wiped her teary eyes and looked at her husband. Ejike, I can't watch her die. I would rather give her up and let someone else save her than bury my only child with my own hands. Ejike clenched his jaw. How could he agree to such a thing? The thought of leaving Adana in the hands of strangers felt like a betrayal of fatherhood. But watching her frail body struggle for breath broke something inside him. He exhaled sharply. You mean we abandon her? To whom? Nneka's voice trembled. We go to the city. We find a wealthy man. Someone who will take her in. Ejike's heart twisted painfully. But what choice did they have? She stayed, she would die. If they left her, there was at least a chance. 2 days later, under the cover of dawn, they wrapped Adana in a thin blanket, kissed her forehead one last time, and embarked on the journey to the city. The road was long, their feet ached, and their stomachs rumbled, but none of it mattered. Their only focus was finding a home for their child. By nightfall, they reached the towering mansion of Alhaji Musa Danjuma, a billionaire whose wealth was known far and wide. The golden gates stood tall like silent guards, and the vast compound gleamed under the streetlights. They hid in the shadows, hearts pounding. Nneka swallowed hard and placed Adana gently on the marble doorstep. Tears streamed down her face. May the gods protect you, my daughter, she whispered, then turned away quickly, unable to bear the sight. Ejike hesitated. His instincts screamed at him to pick her up, to run back into the darkness. But instead, he pulled out a small wooden pendant from his pocket, the only heirloom he owned, and tucked it into Adana's blanket. One day she will know who she is. Then, with heavy hearts and silent sobs, they vanished into the night. The mansion remained quiet for what felt like an eternity. Then a baby's cry pierced the silence. Inside, Alhaji Musa sat in his luxurious living room, sipping tea. The wail reached his ears and he frowned. What's that sound? His wife Aisha barely glanced up from her magazine. Probably a cat. Curious, Musa rose from his chair and walked to the front door. The moment he opened it, his breath caught. Lying on the cold floor was a baby. Tiny, helpless, and crying. His heart clenched. Aisha, he called. His wife appeared, her silk robe trailing behind her. Her eyes widened in horror. What is this? A child, Aisha. Someone abandoned her here. Aisha took a step back, crossing her arms. Leave her. This is a bad omen. What if she brings misfortune into our home? Musa knelt and gently picked up the baby. Her dark eyes looked up at him, full of innocence. Something in him softened. How can you say that? She's just a child. I said leave her, Musa. Aisha's voice was sharp. We don't know where she came from. This could be a trap. A curse. Musa ignored her. He cradled the baby, rocking her gently. Oh, she's staying. Aisha's lips tightened into a thin line. Then don't say I didn't warn you. Musa gazed down at the baby, making his decision final. I will name you Adana, he whispered. The baby cooed softly in his arms, unaware that her life had just taken a new, unpredictable turn. Did fate make mistakes, or did it simply test the endurance of the strong? Would love conquer prejudice, Or would rejection seal the destiny of the helpless? The billionaire Alhaji Musa Danjuma cradled the fragile baby in his arms, his heart swelling with an unfamiliar tenderness. She was tiny, innocent, an abandoned jewel left at his doorstep. He glanced at the blanket she was wrapped in, noticing the small wooden pendant tucked inside. Someone left this for a reason. His wife, Aisha, folded her arms tightly across her chest, her eyes filled with disapproval. Musa, listen to me. This is madness. You cannot keep this child. He sighed, his grip on the baby tightening protectively. How can I throw her away, Aisha? Look at her. She needs us. She's not our responsibility. People don't abandon children for no reason. What if this child is cursed? What if her parents were criminals? What if she brings misfortune to this house? Musa's eyes darkened with determination. And what if she was abandoned out of desperation? What if she is meant for something greater? Will we turn our backs on her because of fear? Aisha scoffed, shaking her head. I refuse to raise another woman's child. Musa exhaled heavily. He had known Aisha for years, had seen the icy steel in her when she made up her mind. But this was a battle he wasn't willing to lose. I am keeping her. And I will do it the right way, he declared firmly. Within days, Alhaji Musa began the process of legal adoption. Papers were signed, documents were approved, and soon, the baby officially became part of the Danjuma family. He named her Adana, a name that meant father's daughter, because in his heart, that was exactly what she had become. But not everyone welcomed her with open arms. Aisha, though forced to accept the situation, made it clear that Adana would never truly be her daughter. She refused to hold her, turned away when Musa fed her, and ensured that her own children, Farida and Malik, understood that the little girl in their house was not their equal. As the years passed, the division grew stronger. Adana, though intelligent and hardworking, was treated like an outsider in her own home. Aisha made sure of it. While Farida and Malik lounged in the grand living room, laughing at cartoons and playing video games, Adana was in the backyard, scrubbing the tiled floors with blistered hands. While they attended extravagant birthday parties, dressed in designer clothes, Adana stayed behind, washing their outfits and tidying the house. While they enjoyed luxurious family vacations, Adana remained home, cooking elaborate meals she was not allowed to eat. Was this truly her fate? To serve in the house she was supposed to call home? Aisha's punishments were relentless. She forced Adana to wake up before dawn to sweep the entire compound. She made her carry heavy buckets of water, wash dishes till her fingers turned raw, and polish the marble floors until they gleamed. And still Adana endured it all. Why? Because despite everything, she had one thing that Aisha's own children didn't: her father's love. Alhaji Musa saw through the cruelty, but his hands were tied. Confronting Aisha only worsened the situation. Musa, you chose to keep her, so deal with it, she would say coldly. Yet, in the midst of all the hardship, something remarkable happened. Adana grew into a young woman of grace and resilience. She never spoke back, never complained, never showed weakness. She excelled in school, her brilliance catching the attention of her teachers. One evening, while attending a charity event with Alhaji Musa, an event Aisha had tried to prevent her from attending, she caught the eye of a powerful CEO. The man observed her quiet intelligence, her confidence, and her ability to engage in deep conversations. Who is she? The CEO asked. Alhaji Musa smiled with pride. That is my daughter. But just as fate seemed ready to reward her perseverance, a storm was brewing. Aisha had seen the way her husband beamed at Adana. She had seen the way the CEO had looked at her with interest. And deep down she knew Adana was becoming a force greater than she had ever imagined. And Aisha would not allow it. Well, not if she could help it. What happens when envy takes root in the heart? How far will a person go to destroy what they cannot control? Aisha sat in her lavish bedroom, her fingers drumming against the polished glass of her vanity mirror. The memory of the charity event burned in her mind like a wildfire. That CO. He had looked at Adana with admiration. Musa had introduced her as his daughter with a smile that he never reserved for Farida or Malik. Her own children, her pride, were sitting in that same event, yet no one had noticed them. No CEO had asked about them. No one had seen them as the future. But Adana, that girl was slowly becoming everything Aisha had feared. Powerful, recognized, and untouchable. Well, not while she was alive. A slow, cruel smile spread across Aisha's face. If Adana thought she could rise above her place, she was wrong. The next morning, Aisha called Adana into the kitchen, where a mountain of dirty dishes sat in the sink. The entire house was spotless, yet Aisha had gone out of her way to make a mess. Adana, she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness, today, you will scrub every inch of this house. The bathrooms, the floors, the chandeliers. And when you're done, you will prepare breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I want fresh pounded yam and egusi soup by noon. And if you fail, you will not eat today. Adana looked at her, knowing this was a punishment for last night's charity event. But she did not argue. She simply nodded. Yes, Ma. Aisha's eyes narrowed. No resistance. No protest. The girl was too obedient. Too strong. Fine. Let's see how long she lasts. Throughout the day, Aisha added more tasks, making sure Adana had no time to rest. Malik and Farida sat in the living room, watching movies and laughing, while Adana scrubbed the floor on her hands and knees. By evening, her arms ached, her fingers were raw, and exhaustion pulled at her like weights. But she would not break. She refused to give Aisha that satisfaction. Later that night, as Adana stood in the kitchen preparing dinner, Aisha called Farida and Malik into her bedroom. Her eyes gleamed with mischief. You both need to understand something, she whispered. That girl downstairs. She is not one of us. She will never be one of us. And I will not sit by while she takes what is yours. Farida folded her arms. What do you mean, Mummy? Aisha leaned in, her voice low and cunning. Your father favors her. Did you see the way he praised her in front of that CEO? Do you think he would ever do that for you? Malik's face darkened. No way. That can't happen. Aisha smiled, satisfied. Good. So, you must help me remind her where she belongs. Farida and Malik exchanged glances before smirking. Plan was forming. Downstairs, Adana wiped her sweaty forehead, unaware that the true battle had only just begun. How much pain can one heart endure? When does suffering cross the line between fate and cruelty? The sun barely rose before chaos erupted in the Danjuma mansion. Malik's voice tore through the morning silence. Thief! Somebody help! A thief! Aisha ran down the grand staircase in her silk robe. Her face twisted in mock horror. What is it? Malik pointed an accusing finger at Adana, who stood frozen in the middle of the living room. In her trembling hands was a gold wristwatch, Al-Haji Musa's most prized possession. Aisha gasped dramatically. Dana, you dare steal from this house? Adana's eyes widened. Oh, I didn't. Liar. Farida spat. We caught you red-handed. Daddy's watch was missing all night, and look where it is now. Adana's heart pounded violently. She had found the watch on the floor just moments ago. But before she could explain, Aisha turned to the security guards. Take her to her room. Lock her inside. Oh, please. I didn't do anything. Adana pleaded, but the guards obeyed Aisha without question. As the door slammed shut behind her, Adana collapsed onto the bed. This was not a mistake. This was a trap. But why? Tears welled in her eyes, but she forced them back. She would not break. Then a chilling realization hit her. If Aisha was willing to frame her for theft, what else was she capable of? And just as the thought crossed her mind, she heard Aisha's voice outside the door, cold and calculating. This is just the beginning. Adana's breath caught in her throat. Was she strong enough to survive what was coming next? How much cruelty can one person endure? When does suffering reach its breaking point? Adana sat on the cold floor of her room, her heart pounding like the drums of war. She replayed the scene in her head. The watch, the accusations, the way Aisha's eyes gleamed with triumph. This was no accident. Aisha had planned this. But why? Before she could fully gather her thoughts, the door burst open. Aisha stood there, arms folded, lips curled in satisfaction. "Adana," she drawled, stepping into the room. "How does it feel to finally be exposed as the thief you are?" Adana met her gaze, refusing to lower her head. "I am not a thief." Aisha laughed, slow and mocking. "Oh, my dear girl, do you think the truth matters? In this house, my word is the truth." Adana clenched her fists. She had suffered for years, endured the punishments, the insults, the isolation, but this was a new level of cruelty. Aisha leaned in, her voice a sharp whisper. "You should have known your place. But you kept pushing, kept trying to be more than you were meant to be. And now, you will suffer the consequences." With that, she turned and walked out, slamming the door shut behind her. Adana closed her eyes. Would her father believe her when he returned? Or would Aisha's lies poison his mind against her? She had to be careful. She had to be strong. Because this was only the beginning. Meanwhile, in the lavish dining hall, Aisha, Farida, and Malik sat around the grand table, enjoying a meal fit for royalty. Laughter and conversation filled the air, but there was an unspoken tension. Farida stabbed at her food with her fork. "Mummy, do you think Daddy will believe us when he returns?" Aisha sipped her tea with an air of confidence. "By the time Musa returns, Adana will be too broken to defend herself." Malik smirked. Good. She was getting too comfortable. Aisha's eyes flickered with satisfaction. This is just the beginning. In her room, Adana stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. She couldn't let them win. But how could she fight when the battle was so unfair? And then, like a whisper in the wind, a thought came to her. She would wait. She would endure. And when the time was right, she would rise. Because fate had not abandoned her yet. How deep does betrayal cut? And when the ones we trust turn against us, where do we run? Days turned into weeks, and Adana remained locked away, fed only small portions of food, treated as though she were an outcast. Then one afternoon, the door to her room swung open violently. Two uniformed men stood at the entrance. Police officers. Adana's heart stopped. Aisha walked in behind them, her face the perfect mask of sorrow. "Officers, please. Take her away before she brings more shame upon this family." Adana scrambled to her feet. "What is happening?" One of the officers stepped forward. "You are under arrest for attempted theft and poisoning." The words struck her like a blow to the chest. "Poisoning?" Her voice trembled. "I didn't." Aisha stepped forward, eyes glistening with fake tears. "How could you, Adana? After everything we did for you. We took you in, raised you as one of our own, and this is how you repay us." Adana's body went cold. They had planned this all along. The officers grabbed her arms roughly, pulling her toward the door. She struggled. "Please. I swear I didn't do anything." Farida stood by, arms folded, a wicked grin playing on her lips. "Lying won't save you now." As they dragged her out, she looked back one last time, hoping, praying that someone would intervene. But no one did. The Danjuma mansion had turned its back on her. As the police car drove away, she stared out the window, her heart shattering into a million pieces. Would she ever be free? Would she ever see her father again? Have you ever screamed so loud, yet no one heard you? Have you ever begged for justice, only to be met with silence? Adana sat on the cold, hard floor of the police cell, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. The air was thick with the scent of damp concrete and despair. Every passing second felt like an eternity. She replayed the scene over and over in her head. Aisha's fake tears, the cold stare of the officers, the weight of the handcuffs around her wrists. Attempted poisoning. Theft. She whispered to herself, shaking her head. How had it come to this? A female officer walked past her cell and gave her a pitiful glance. You must have made some powerful enemies, girl, she muttered. Adana wanted to scream. She wanted to tell them that this was all a lie. But who would believe her? And then the thought hit her like a wave crashing against the shore. Her father. Musa Danjuma. If there was anyone who could save her, it was him. But where was he? Would he return in time? Or would she rot in this place forever? Back at the mansion, Aisha and her children basked in their victory. Malik leaned back on the couch, smirking. I must say, mother, that was a brilliant plan. Aisha waved a hand dismissively. She deserved it. I told your father from the beginning. Don't take this child, she might be a misfortune. But did he listen? Farida chuckled. Now she's out of the way, and we have nothing to worry about. Aisha took a sip of her drink, satisfied. By the time Musa returns, Adana will be a forgotten memory. Days turned into weeks. Adana lost track of time. She barely ate. She barely slept. Each night she asked herself the same questions. Was this how her life was meant to end? Was she really so unlucky to be born into misfortune? And then one fateful morning everything changed. A voice echoed through the police station. Where is she? Where is my daughter? Adana's head snapped up. She knew that voice. Musa Danjuma had returned. What happens when a storm is unleashed? What happens when a man realizes the extent of the betrayal that has taken place in his own home? Musa Danjuma stood at the front desk of the police station. His fists clenched at his sides. His face, usually composed and calm, was dark with fury. Who gave the order to arrest my daughter? His voice was a dangerous growl. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Sir, she was accused of theft and attempted poisoning, one officer explained hesitantly. Musa's eyes burned with rage. And did you investigate properly? Or did you simply take the words of a jealous and wicked woman? The officer swallowed hard. Well, sir, her stepmother and siblings. Her stepmother? Musa scoffed. Aisha Danjuma is a liar. That girl is my daughter, and you have made the gravest mistake of your lives. The station fell silent. No one dared to speak. Release her. Now. Musa barked. Minutes later, Adana was led out, weak and frail. The moment she saw him, her legs gave way. Musa rushed forward, catching her before she could collapse. Papa. Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. His heart shattered. My child, he whispered, holding her close. What have they done to you? Adana felt the warmth of his embrace, something she had been deprived of for so long. But even in her father's arms, one question haunted her. Would she ever be truly free from Aisha's cruelty? Back at the mansion, the atmosphere was tense. Aisha paced the living room, chewing her lip. Musa is back, she muttered. And he knows. Farida paled. What do we do now? Before Aisha could respond, the front doors burst open. Musa stormed in, his eyes flashing with uncontained fury. Aisha took a step back. Musa. Silence. His voice roared through the house like a thunderclap. Malik and Farida shrank into the couch. You evil, wicked woman. Musa's voice shook with rage. You dare to frame my daughter. You dare to lock her away like a criminal while your own children sit here in luxury. Aisha's hands trembled. I was only protecting my children. Musa let out a bitter laugh. Protecting them. Or raising them to be heartless, selfish fools. Aisha gasped, but Musa wasn't done. I should have listened to my instincts. You were never a mother to Adana. You saw her as a threat. And for what? Because she had a kind heart. Because she worked hard. Because she had a future brighter than your own children. Aisha's lips trembled, but she couldn't find the words to defend herself. Musa turned to Malik and Farida. His voice cold. And you too. You sat back and watched an innocent girl suffer. You will live to regret it. Malik's jaw tightened. She's not even your real daughter. Silence. A deadly silence. Then Musa turned back to Aisha. His voice dangerously low. From this moment on, I am cutting you off from every privilege I have ever given you. Adana is my daughter, and I will make sure she gets what she deserves. As for you, Aisha," his eyes narrowed, "you will soon reap everything you have sown." Aisha's knees buckled. Was this the end of her reign? Or was the worst yet to come? Have you ever watched a kingdom crumble? Have you ever seen someone who thought they were untouchable face the consequences of their wickedness? Aisha sat in her bedroom, her hands trembling as she stared at her reflection in the mirror. The once proud, elegant woman now looked like a shadow of herself. The house was no longer filled with laughter. It was quiet, too quiet. The weight of Musa's words crushed her chest like a boulder. "From this moment on, I am cutting you off from every privilege I have ever given you." She had laughed at Adana before. She had watched with satisfaction as the girl scrubbed floors, washed endless piles of clothes, and suffered in silence. Now she was the one suffering. She had lost access to Musa's fortune. The servants whispered behind her back, mocking her downfall. The companies that once begged for her favor now treated her like an outsider. But worst of all, her own children were turning against her. In the dining room, Malik threw a glass against the wall. "How could you let this happen?" he bellowed. "We had everything. And now, thanks to your stupidity, we have nothing." Farida crossed her arms. "We should have left Adana alone. If we had, father wouldn't have turned against us." Aisha's blood boiled. "Are you blaming me?" she snapped. "I did everything for you. I protected you. I made sure you had the best life." Malik scoffed. "Well, you failed. And now we're paying the price." Aisha clenched her fists. Her own son. The same boy she had pampered, given the best clothes, the best toys, the best of everything, now looked at her like she was dirt. And then it hit her. She had created this monster. Her blind love and excessive pampering had turned them into arrogant, selfish brats. Musa had been right. Meanwhile, Adana sat in Musa's study, nervously twisting her fingers. "Papa, you don't have to do this," she whispered. Musa shook his head. "Have to, my daughter. You deserve better than what they gave you." Adana's heart pounded as she watched him take out some documents. "Adana, I have always loved you as my own child. And now I am making it official. These documents will ensure you inherit a significant portion of my wealth." Her eyes widened. "What?" He gave a small smile. "You are my jewel. My forsaken jewel. But I will not let you be forsaken anymore." Tears welled up in Adana's eyes. Could this really be happening? Was fate finally repaying her for all the years of suffering? Have you ever seen the tables turn so drastically that the past feels like a distant nightmare? Months passed, and the world began to see Adana in a different light. She had been offered a high-ranking position in one of the biggest corporations, thanks to her intelligence and diligence. Her elegance and humility captivated people. Her story inspired many. She had gone from a mistreated orphan to one of the most powerful young women in the city. Meanwhile, Malik and Farida's downfall was swift and brutal. Without their father's protection, they lost job opportunities. Their arrogance had burned too many bridges. Malik, once full of confidence, was now being accused of fraud. Farida, once admired for her beauty, had developed a reputation for being irresponsible and entitled. Aisha, now completely broken, sat in her lonely bedroom. The woman who once ruled the mansion now had nothing. One evening, Adana received an unexpected visit. Two frail figures stood at her doorstep, their faces filled with shame and regret. Her biological parents. Adana froze. She had dreamed of this moment countless times. She had imagined herself screaming at them, demanding why they had abandoned her. But now, as she looked into their tear-filled eyes, she felt no anger. Adana, her mother wept, falling to her knees. "We are so sorry. We never wanted to leave you, but we had no choice. We were poor. We thought you would have a better life." Her father sobbed. "Every day we regretted it. We searched for you, but you were gone. Please forgive us." Adana's heart ached. Could she forgive them? Hadn't she, too, once felt abandoned? She took a deep breath, stepping forward. I suffered. I cried myself to sleep. But I survived. She looked at them with softened eyes. And because of that, I can find it in my heart to forgive you. Her parents wept harder, holding her hands as if they were afraid she would disappear again. For the first time in her life, Adana felt whole. That night, a grand celebration was held in her honor. Friends, business associates, and well-wishers gathered to celebrate her victory. And at that moment, as she stood at the center of the grand hall, adorned in luxury, holding the hand of the wealthy man she had fallen in love with, she realized. She was no longer the abandoned girl left at a stranger's doorstep. She was the forsaken jewel who had finally found her true worth. Thank you for watching, but let's discuss these moral lessons together. Kindness and compassion are always rewarded. Musa's decision to take in Adana despite his wife's warning led to blessings in his life, showing that acts of kindness never go unrewarded. Arrogance leads to destruction. Aisha pampered her children excessively, making them arrogant and entitled. In the end, they lost everything, proving that humility is key to success. Hard work and good character open doors. Adana remained diligent and respectful despite her suffering, which led to her recognition by a CEO and her rise to wealth. Hard work and a good attitude always attract success. Greed and wickedness bring suffering. Aisha's greed and wickedness against Adana only led to her downfall, teaching that mistreating others will eventually backfire. True family is built on love, not blood. Though not biologically related, Musa loved and cared for Adana as his own daughter, proving that family is about love and not just genetics. Forgiveness brings healing. Adana's decision to forgive her biological parents despite their past mistake brought emotional healing, showing that holding on to grudges only weighs us down. Justice always prevails. Despite being falsely accused, Adana was eventually vindicated, proving that truth and justice always win in the end. Pride goes before a fall. Malik and Farida's arrogance cost them their reputation and opportunities, teaching that pride and entitlement can destroy one's future. Gratitude and humility lead to greater blessings. Adana remained humble and grateful despite her challenges, and she was rewarded beyond her imagination. Those who appreciate life's blessings receive even more. Wealth without discipline is meaningless. Musa's biological children had everything handed to them, yet they failed in life. This proves that wealth without discipline and strong values leads to failure. Here ends the story, but we will love to see your thought in the comment section, and where you are watching us from. Until next time, good luck.